over to Team Titan and their app, ChariT. Take it away.
Hi everyone, we're Team Titan, and today, next slide please. Today we've got Mercedes, Iqbal, Sejong, Ben, and myself, Nadia. We've created a ChariT app, which is an app where organisations can post volunteering opportunities and volunteers can go out and apply and find those opportunities easily. We thought of this idea because through personal experience, if you don't know the right person or you don't know where to look, it can be really, really hard to find this. And we wanted to create a solution where we remove as many of those barriers between getting people to be able to volunteer as possible. So I'm just going to hand over to Mercedes now to do the demo.
Hi, I'm Mercedes and I will talk you through a demo of our app. We created our app to be used in mobile devices using React Native and Expo. On our app, we have the option to log in or sign up, either as a volunteer, fill in their details and interests, or as an organization to list opportunities. Today, we are going to show the volunteer journey. Users can log in using their username and their password. We make sure this is unique. Once logged in, we are redirected to the homepage. We have a search bar and also a sort by options, either by most recent opportunities listed or starting date. Here on the homepage, users can browse to all the opportunities listed by different organizations. This uses a MySQL query to fetch the data from Amazon Relational Database Services, known as RDS. Each opportunity has an event name, organization name, who posted, and the starting date. If we want to know more information, we click on the event where we have an option to apply. Here we can see the details and the requirement. We have a tab on the left to filter categories by community support, mental health, environment. I love animal. Let's say I want to filter by animal categories. I click on the event, read the description, and found local animal rescue center is quite interesting. So I click on apply and I submit my application. Once I press on submit, I have a successful message and I can review. Going back to the menu, I can go to applications to review all my applications and their status. We can see that local animal rescue is pending because all the applications by default, the initial status is pending. We also have on the menu tab a profile section. It allows us to change our username, avatar URL, and tick or untick the DBS check and driving license checkboxes. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and I'm going to pass you on to Sonjeon. She will talk about the backend tech that we have used. Thank you.
Thanks, Mercedes. In terms of backend, we chose Amazon Web Service because it is one of the most secure cloud providers and is widely used in industry. AWS was not covered in our course, but we decided to challenge ourselves by learning a new technology. So for the database, we use RDS, a relational database, because we wanted to use SQL database. So we connected to the database on the DB instance using MySQL Workbench and stored users, organizations, and opportunities information in RDS. We use Lambda function and API gateway in order to make HTTP request, which can receive and pass the request onto Lambda, interacting with the database and then sending the response back to the users. Finally, We deploy this through Claudia because Claudia allows for easy deployment of our Node.js project. I'll now pass on to Iqbal to talk about front-end tech.
Thank you, Seojong. We used React Native because it's widely used and it's a progression on React that we learned in the course. Also, there were a number of frameworks that we could use as well, one of them was UI Kitten. Because this is for volunteering and we wanted to make it as smooth as possible, that is the reason why we used the UI Kitten framework, so that it gave a uniform feeling also when you're navigating. That was also based on Expo, so that any changes in the code, we could see the changes actually on the screen straight away, rather than having to reload. And finally, we used Axios for actually getting the data from the backend. So I'll now pass you over to Ben, who will go through some of the obstacles in the project.
Thanks, Iqbal. Next slide, please. Sound like Chris Whitty. So in terms of issues, it's fair to say we've encountered a few sticking points during the development of this app. So in particular, we found the initial hurdle of setting up both the front end and back end took longer than we'd all expected. We encountered several errors, which took more hours of reading through documentation than I care to go into too much detail about today. But I will talk briefly about 3 areas where we encountered issues. So in terms of the back-end side of things, using AWS, we found there was a very steep learning curve setting that up, which I know some of the other groups have alluded to so far today. There are so many platforms and tools available, and the documentation is so detailed that although I'm sure that's really helpful as you become more familiar with AWS, I think it's fair to say it's not very kind of new user friendly. However, we did find ourselves behind on where we wanted to be kind of after the first week of programming, really, but we used our daily stand-ups and our Kanban board to kind of move people within the team around and get some extra resource from those working on the front end, and together we kind of got there in the end. And after we got past that initial hurdle, I think setting up the back end went pretty smoothly after that. In terms of the front end, we had some issues with React navigation. So as anyone who has used it will know, it's a separate library to React Native. And we had a long-running issue with our navigation being out of sync with the rendering of our UI as we were trying to develop the app. So essentially, the UI was there, it was looking great, but trying to navigate within that UI was kind of failing at various points. And solving that took a kind of huge chunk of our time. We spent a lot of time getting kind of very familiar with the documentation. But ultimately, after some mob programming with the whole group, we found an alternative way of doing that, which solved the issue. And I think that was a kind of great learning point for us, because although persistence with one method is sometimes the answer, as with our issues with AWS, we kind of learned that other times it's worth looking at alternatives when something's not working for you, or at least having another member of the team looking at alternatives while you still try to solve the issue. And that way you might kind of get there more quickly. Finally, just briefly, with React Native, during our spiking, we found that it felt reasonably familiar, having learned React during the course. So it felt like a kind of safe choice when we were intending to build a mobile app and we were using tech that was kind of novel for us. For kind of every other bit of tech that we used really was like that. However, when we kind of got into the nuts and bolts of it and began building the app, it became quite clear it was pretty different from React, and that caused some difficulties. So just as an example, one of the libraries we used, UI Kitten, which was new to us, as were many of the libraries, and we had to be really careful with the dependencies we used with that. So UI Kitten required using a specific version of React Native, and we faced multiple errors before we kind of realized that was the case and worked that out. But I think overall, we thoroughly enjoyed the learning experience, and we feel pretty confident using these technologies, having only started properly using them a couple of weeks ago. So those are the issues we encountered. I'll just hand over to Nadia to finish our presentation.
Thanks, Ben. In closing, I'd just like to say we're really proud of what we managed to achieve in quite a short period of time. We've learned a huge amount during this project, not just about the technologies that we've chosen to explore, but also about how to work as part of a team and how beneficial mod programming and agile practices are as part of our everyday working sort of timetable. In terms of future functionality, if we were to continue working on this app, I think there's a huge amount of scope. You know, we'd love to implement something where you could potentially see opportunities distributed by distance on a map around you, that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's loads of places to go. Wish we had more time to do it. But yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Fab, thank you.